Okay, so I have to ask the question, why are you here? And I don't mean in the metaphysical existential sense. I mean, now that you know I'm a pastor, why are you here? Because usually when I have a new friend or a neighbor find out I'm a pastor, they immediately look at me like my hair's on fire. Then they apologize for the F-bomb that they just said the last sentence. And then they say, oh, my great uncle twice removed was a minister, so, you know. But, you know, I actually have a vocation that has some perks as well. I can be on an airplane sitting next to kind of a chatty Cathy kind of person who asks me what I do. And if I'm really intent on working and not carrying on a conversation, I just say, you know, I'm an emissary of the Lord Jesus Christ that has come to deliver God's message to the world, you know. Maybe I'll tell you a quick story. To kind of match this clustering of creatives with a sensibility that's not necessarily overtly religious, I like to tell the story of being in a coffee shop in Berkeley. And what I love about Berkeley, what I love about Oakland, is you can be in a coffee shop, you're enjoying your, you know, fair trade, organic, single origin bean, cup of caffeine, and all of a sudden you notice outside someone walks by and they're carrying a Bible in their hand. And then you see another passerby walk by and he's wearing nothing but a pink tutu. And then the guy you're sitting next to you happens to turn to you and says, was he carrying a Bible? Which I think is just the epitome of what it means to live here. So in that context, over the last 9 years, we've had the privilege to found 3 different locations. Our church is one church of 3 locations, as well as 2 different church startups, one in San Francisco and one now right near here in downtown Oakland. And then we started a nonprofit back in 2007, Project Peace, which takes essentially the resources of faith-based organizations and matches them with the needs of our community. So we, for instance, had a service project last month that took 12 churches, put them in 16 locations with over 600 volunteers. So I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship, and if I can get back to the why are you here question, as Bambi asked you, if you're starting a company or thinking about starting a company, you're here because you're an entrepreneur or you're an aspiring entrepreneur. And with that comes the reality that you're a free thinker, that you're innovative, that you're creative. And with that, I think, also comes the reality that you carry a burden within your heart that really is the gap between what is and what ought to be. So whatever you're building, whatever you're starting, whether it's an app, whether it's a platform, whatever it may be, you're hoping to bridge that gap. And so your sweat, your tears, your life, everything about who you are is seeking to bridge that gap. And the reality, though, when you come back to reality and get out of the dream for a second, the reality is you're doing a couple of things in that moment. One, you're combating naysayers usually. And Bambi alluded to this. You know, you're pitching your idea. It's not getting the traction you want it to get. I was reminded of an article I read years ago in Wired magazine by Kevin Kelly, who's the founding editor. And he said years ago, ABC brought him in to talk with them about this internet thing. So he sits down with all their VPs and he gives this pitch about why the internet is going to be so important. And one of the VPs says, well, you know, it's really just going to be the ham radio of the 1990s. And he went on to say, we're never going to turn passive consumers of television into active trollers on a computer. And so as Kevin Kelly is leaving, he says, hey, here's an idea. You should at least look at abc.com because I looked at it this morning. It's not registered. You might want to buy it. Yeah. And he said he looked at it a month later. They still had not made the move. So you're going to be combating naysayers, and you have to contend with that. You're also going to be competing for funding, you know, whether that is bootstrapping, whether that is, you know, making the right pitch to your friends or your family or professional investors. And sometimes in that dynamic, you are going to feel a sense of losing yourself, losing your passion. So often when you're trying to inspire people around your passion, it comes at the exhaust of that passion. So part of what I would like to introduce to you in my time I have is how can you continue to revive that passion in a way that will allow you as a person and hopefully your organization to be sustainable. So I think the best way to take your unusual, your extraordinary, your uncommon idea and leverage it for the common good is to ask this question. What will my life be like if I give the next 10 years to this uncommon idea? What will my life be like if I give the next 10 years to this uncommon idea? Now, 10 is not a magic number. It may be 7, it may be 20, but I'm just putting it there in the context of what can feel like a very short time horizon culture to get you to think long thoughts and to take a long view about your entrepreneurship, about the company or the product or the app that you're building. And I think if you're able to take this long view, then 3 things will happen. And these are my points, and if I were more professional, I would have them on a keynote deck or something. But the points are these. You'll be a better person. You will create a healthy culture in your organization. And you will be able to serve the common good. You'll have social impact in your organization from the beginning. So I just want to unpack those for a couple moments, and hopefully we'll have 5 minutes at the end for questions. So if you can take the long view toward your uncommon idea, I think it will allow you to become a better person, to create a healthy culture in your organization, and to seed in social impact from the start. So a word on each of those. And I recognize when I say that, and maybe I need to explore the why underneath this for just a moment before I give you some principles. I'm assuming that those are 3 things we would all get excited about. But the why underneath is, as a minister, I do a lot of funerals, and funerals puts people face to face with death. I mean, the people I do the funerals for have died, but the people in the room are face to face with death. And you start thinking about your eulogy. And no one wants their eulogy to be, he was a curmudgeon, he was an asshole, like he was dishonest, had no integrity. People that worked for him hated him. They were always insecure because they weren't paid enough and they didn't have good benefits. And the company just raped and pillaged the culture and society. I mean, no one wants that. Everyone wants at their funeral, great guy, integrity, love being around him, great to work for. We built a great organization. So I'm assuming we all get that the why of these things is important, but I want to talk about the how for a second. What does it mean to be a better person? How can you build yourself as a better person in the context of your startup? I would contend, and this is not again, metaphysical, existential consideration, but I would contend that basically part of the human project is that we are on a quest to maximize our happiness and to alleviate our sadness. We want to be happy and we don't want to be sad, and that's the way we kind of design and hopefully live out our lives. And I think that journey gets punctuated, maybe even exasperated by daddy issues and mommy issues. So I have some friends at Pixar. There's a rabbi that they call the Pixar rabbi that comes there from time to help them with their storytelling. And he contends that every good story has 3 or 4 different attributes, and the number 1 is daddy issues, or mommy issues. So your life is a good story. I know you have mommy issues, I know you have daddy issues. Some of them may be, please don't be an entrepreneur and start a company because you really need to make real money, So I get that. And I get that that also exacerbates the way you contend with maximizing your happiness and alleviating sadness. So my contention would be, if you are going to be a better person through this process, through this startup, please do not put the pressure on your startup to make you happy or to not make you sad. I read an article, it was actually a short book years ago, from an aesthetics professor at Harvard named Elaine Scarre, entitled On Beauty and Being Just, I think it was. And she was talking about how we are apprehended by and how we apprehend beauty. But in the apprehension, there is something beyond that beauty that is getting signaled. And she suggests, and this is the phrase that I want you to hear, that in effect, it could be too fragile to handle the gravity of your immense regard. And I would suggest that your startup, your product, your app, your platform, whatever it may be, is too fragile to handle the immensity or the gravity of your immense regard. Or if you want to speak in terms of Lord of the Rings, this is Schmiegel's, my precious moment. If you're trying to maximize your happiness from this startup, it will crush you. You will be consumed by it. And also don't look to your startup to alleviate or to undo your sadness. I read another article years ago that stuck with me by a secular Jewish woman named Judith Shulevitz. It was in the New York Times. I think the article was something about remembering the Sabbath or something. And she's not a person of faith per se, but she was saying how she quickly discovered in her secular lifestyle of a couple decades that she was missing the cultivating that she participated in slowing down and in keeping Sabbath. And I would suggest, Bambi used the words lifestyle business. Yeah, I know that's a bit of a buzz, and I should probably know that word, but I like that. I wrote it down for the first time. So some of you may be building a lifestyle business, and this is getting worked into the framework of your startup. I think that's fantastic. If you're not, may I suggest you have to cultivate something that will help you maximize your happiness and alleviate your sadness that is not your startup. Otherwise, everyone around you is going to hate you. So if that's therapy, that's great. If that is finding some sort of hobby or fitness activity, that's wonderful. If that's a community of faith, and this is not necessarily a plug, although I will underscore, I'm using only sociological data. People that are in faith communities are much happier, much healthier, and much more generous. So maybe that's a part of it. But whatever it is for you, please do not press the gravity of your immense regard on your startup, because you will not be a better person when it fails or when it succeeds. And that's actually the test. Because if you're really, really successful and it sort of rings hollow and isn't as deeply satisfying as you thought it was, or if you fail miserably and it absolutely crushes you, you will know, I have put way too much weight on this thing and I am not, in effect, a better person. So a couple quick words on the second, third, creating a healthy culture. I'll say a lot less about this than I said about the first. Let me just suggest, if you're the founder, if this is your startup, you create the culture. There is no excuse to make here. Like, this culture will be yours. So when you hire one person, when you hire 5 people, when you hire 50 people, all of a sudden you have built an ecosystem and you are the watershed, which means what will flow into the culture of your organization is living water of integrity, of equity, of diversity, of justice, of all the things we would value deeply. Or what will flow into your ecosystem, which is your organization, are pollutants and toxins. So you as the starter are responsible for cultivating a healthy organization. One of the cultural values that has stuck with me forever came from Marcus Buckingham. I don't know if he's still doing his thing, but he's kind of a management guru of a decade or so ago. And he made this comment that has really marked me. He said, you can get work done through people, or you can get your people done through work. And I thought, wow, what a great statement with respect to building your culture and establishing a healthy culture in your organization. What would it be like if as you're hiring toward that organization, you're thinking, now how is this person not only going to maximize profit and enhance our organization or whatever, but how is this person going to become a better person through their work here? So I think the onus is on you, again, to create that culture. You own it. There's no excuses there. And then thirdly, it's the social impact question. So I had a conversation with a parishioner not too long ago. Ezra was reminding me of this. And I do want you to know, like, this is not theory for me. I've had dozens of entrepreneurs starting things that go to our church. And so I get to hear all the success stories and all the failure stories. And this particular guy said, well, my startup is my baby. I just want my baby to eat up all the other babies. And I thought, hey, that's a great picture of how not to pursue social impact from the start, how not to pursue the common good with your uncommon idea. But I really want to conclude with one ancient example. And I'm not talking about Google, which is a dinosaur now in our time scale, but I'm actually talking about a company that started in 1750. So it's almost 300 years old. And just a little word about this company. And this is, I'm just going to pick at three things and I'm done. Attention to an exceptional care for their employees. So the great-great-grandson of the founder says this: you cannot make money from people unless you're willing for people to make money from you. So in the 1920s, a report on this company went out. They paid their employees 10 to 20% higher than average. On site, they had 2 doctors, 2 dentists, and a masseuse. They had a pharmacist. They had, so sort of the Googleplex, you know, the 1920s. They had they gave full pensions to all their employees. They provided low interest loans to keep families in homes and to provide educational opportunities for their kids. It was a culture marked by greed, not by generosity. So part of pursuing social impact from day one is exceptional care of your employees. So see how all these are interrelated, really. The second thing they did is they gave great attention to product excellence. So today, this product, the company was founded in 1750, is enjoyed 10 million times a day. All right? It's still the industry leader 250 years later. It's sold in 150 countries. It's produced in 49. So third and final principle here. You know, not only are they giving exceptional care to their employees, not only are they pursuing product excellence, which is part of social impact, they're giving great attention to the common good. The University of Wisconsin did a study in 2003 that said one of these every day is good for the human heart. Millions of dollars poured into public education and prison reform. Millions of dollars invested in renovation of slums to affordable housing. So here's the final clue, if you don't know who this is yet. It's been said that this company and its founding family single-handedly delivered Ireland from the potato famine. Do we know what we're talking about here?
I do.
You do. Guinness. This is Guinness. So now that I've told you it's Guinness beer, one more quick fact. Since 1757, they have allowed every employee 2 pints a day of Guinness beer. So,
Mother's milk.
yeah, that's right. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I want you to hear that if you can think a long thought, if you can take a long view, a 10-year view, a 15-year view of your startup, of your uncommon idea, of your organization, it will allow you to be a better person. Number 2, to create a healthy culture in your organization. And 3, to begin with social impact seeded into who you are. And that certainly involves being a better person and creating a healthy culture. I imagine I'm at 20 minutes. I'm supposed to be done. Actually, I have 25, but I'll stop for questions. But anticipating a question, I would imagine I'm gonna receive a challenge from you and then I'm gonna issue a challenge. The challenge is, I imagine some of you are thinking, well, that's great, but startups are cash poor. You know, how can we give money away? You know, our equity is not going to be realized until years from now. So how do you address this? And let me simply suggest seeding generosity from the beginning, and I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about time, talent, all these things, is actually easier. It's easier by way of analogy to if you have some sort of bottom line altruism that's say 10% of your time and talent, treasure, whatever. Well, if it's $100, $10 is easy, because what can you really do with $10? Not a lot. If it's $1,000, $100 is easy, because what can you really do with $100? Not a lot. But if it's 100,000, if it's 1 million, if it's 10 million, and you begin thinking about those monies, that is a hell of a lot of money. So seed it from the beginning. Start thinking about the time and the talent and the treasure and how it's leveraged from the beginning. And then my challenge to you would be if you're also thinking to yourself, hey, I'm only going to be doing this for 2 or 3 or 4 years, so why spend all my time becoming a better person, building organizational value, and seeding social impact? That's why I'm giving this talk. I would not like you to think that way. I would like for you to think 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, because I think it'll make you a better person. You'll be more at home in your skin. It'll make your organization better. Your people will be more at home where they work. And it'll make you more at home in the world. You won't be an allergen to our society, but you'll actually be a benefiter. So, thank you. Woo! That was great.
All right.
We got a couple questions? Yeah. Any questions? No pressure if you don't have any. I will deal with no religious questions today. This is my day off, all right? Yes?
Well, when you got here, and so what do you think about our spikes? Do you think they're still
oh, interesting.
still like the spikes? I mean, I think it's spikier,
yeah.
obviously. Just
yeah.
getting spikier.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your viewpoint of having people start from the beginning. And,
yeah, thank you.
You can make a big impact with those spikes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and I think, one of the parts of the spikiness is the clustering of cultural creatives. And Richard Flora, the sociologist, goes on to say that happens mostly at cocktail parties. And I think what he is saying is, as advanced as we are in our modern technologies and all the capacities we have to link globally, there's something to be said about what you guys are doing, putting venture capitalists and entrepreneurs in the same room together.
That was a great talk, thank you.
Oh, sure.
A quick comment to reinforce your point that you made about the longer term view. I think there's a church in Barcelona which was the artist Gaudi was behind.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And I think when I was in a bus tour taking a tour of that, they said it was 99 years into the church and it was still undone. And when they asked the artist, he said his client, Lord Christ, had no timetable for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's beautiful. Thank you. I've heard that story. That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.